Okay, you're good.
Okay. All right. So this week, we were supposed to read the evaluating research and then watch a few videos. And then there were some questions that we were supposed to think about relating to those videos and to the article. So we'll go ahead and discuss those now. Okay, so the first question was, what do you think it means that all people are entitled to their own opinions, but not to their own facts? And it talked about the video below, which I think was talking about the Studio C video, which was pretty entertaining. What did you guys think?
I actually talked to my husband about it because I was trying to see if there was maybe like a secret meaning that I wasn't catching. But really, when we were talking about it, we decided it just means that truth is truth. You can't make up the truth. You can't alter the truth. What is what is. So you can put your own spin on the truth, but at the end of the day, what is what is. And there's no way you can alter that, and so that's something to keep in mind as advocates that you can give a fact, and alter it in some way if you want to, but if someone were to go home and research it and find out that you would put your own spin on it, then they're not going to find you credible anymore. So just something to keep in mind that we need to say what is for what is, and even if it's against your point, just so that you're making people where you understand all sides of it. I don't know.
You can't force anything that's that doesn't have truth, that doesn't have facts, and so you can have your opinion and you can try as hard as you can to have it one way, but if the facts don't back you up, then, or if you don't have truth, then it's, your opinions are your opinions and you can't force anything.
Yeah, and I think it's really important what you're saying. Like in the video, he knew that George Washington obviously was not the 26th president, but it was funny how much he was swayed by other people's opinions because they thought for sure, it's got to be true. So we got to be careful when we're looking at the truth that we aren't swayed perhaps by other people's opinions so much, even when it's hard, because there's a lot of times when people have very strong opinions and they make it sound like fact, when in fact it is only their opinion, which they are entitled to, but we do need to stay true to the truth, like you were saying. Okay, the next question was, why can statements that begin with "I've heard" or "they say" be so dangerous when articulating your point? I think it kind of goes to what we've been talking about fact and truth over opinion. Just because you've heard something somewhere, there's no evidence to back it up. If you are going to be an advocate, I think you need to make sure that you know both sides of a situation and you know the statistics and the facts that go behind it. When I thought about this, I thought of my son the other day. He was trying to convince me that a crayon was red when it was actually yellow, but he was very convinced that it was red. And I'm thinking, well, he doesn't know all the facts yet. That's his opinion right now. Eventually, when he's a little bit bigger, he'll know what colors are from which. But yeah, I think we need to make sure we know all sides of an argument and not be swayed by what we've heard or what people say. Thoughts?
I think about when you're in a heated discussion, if someone says, "Well, I heard blah," but then I can come back and say, "Well, I read this research article, and by this person who is a doctor, and this is what they said." If there's other people around, they're going to be more likely to take what I'm saying as credible because I can actually say, like, this is where I got my information. Or if you just say, like, "I've heard," I mean, that could have been from Facebook, that could have been and someone walking down the street, and you just kind of think that, you know, there's no way to really back up that statement. And so, you know, maybe you did hear it somewhere, maybe you heard it from your professor or something, but if you can't say where you heard it, then there's no, I don't know, support to it. You know, if I was in a being supported by a lawyer, and the lawyer is like, well, I've heard that this is a law, and you're like, great, thanks. You heard it's a law, or you know it's a law. Like, that doesn't help me at all. So I think that, again, just being credible and being reliable, and being like a source, people know that if you give an opinion or state facts, that they know that it's truth. That staying away from the I sentences keeps you more on the truth side.
Yeah, that's great. It would
I
be
think
pretty awful to go to the lawyer and they are telling you, oh yeah, I heard this about this law. Let's just go with that. That would be really bad. Sorry, go ahead, Madison. I know you
Oh,
were
I was just
going
gonna
to
say, I
say
think
something.
I think you guys nailed it on the head. I don't know what else to say about that. I think you guys did really good. It just makes you more credible and more believable.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So far we have learned the importance of having the doctrine in our hearts. Why do you think it is important to also have good science in our minds and our mouths? So we've talked about that a little bit, but what do you guys think about that?
I think it helps you be more credible, like we talked about. You know, the doctrine of the gospel, it's truth. But being able to back that up with research and with studies helps the people that aren't of our religion, because we can't go around, you know, saying our religion when a lot of people don't agree with it or whatever. But if you have science to back up the principles, um, then you're more credible and more believable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think about even things with the gospel. Like, so that's one reason why I'm such an advocate for the family, because I understand the doctrine part in my heart, and in my mind, it also just makes logical sense that a child would need a father and a mother, and you know that is a family to be all together. And I don't know. I guess when I know it here and I know it here, I'm able to explain myself better. Um, because not only do I have the passion, but I also have the knowledge, and I think that makes an advocate passionate and makes them able to explain themselves in a way that, like you were saying, Madison, doesn't just reach like people that are religious, but also will reach other people. And hopefully, when you have both body, like mind and heart together, you're able to touch their heart and support at the same time. You know, it's a way to say, like, I know what I'm talking about, and let me help you feel the way I'm feeling, because I know where you're at. You know, we've all been somewhere where we just have the knowledge, but we don't really believe it, or we really believe something, but we don't really have like the support in our minds. But when we have both, I think we're strong, sure, I guess.
Yeah, those are excellent points. As you were talking, I was thinking about reason and revelation, how they do go together, and research as well. And as you were saying, being an advocate, we need to know, I think we need to have the revelation on our part to perhaps know what we need to research and have the truth of it known to us, you know, but we also need to do the research and do our part. It's like in the movie about Africa and the growing problem with HIV and AIDS. The people in Africa, you know, they have this research behind them. They had numbers showing the decline of AIDS when they were actually teaching people how to abstain, that they should do the ABCs, abstain and be faithful and use a condom, and that the AIDS went down in that country. And I think they had a very core value in that country, but also they needed to have that research behind it to probably show people even more that, like, what we're doing is not good. They needed it more than, hey, we're religious, or this is not what we should be doing. Okay, we're going to move on to the video about the Common Core, and then about the evaluating research papers that we were supposed to read. says, if you were to pick a side on the Common Core debate, strictly based on the information from evaluating research, which would you pick and why?
I have a question. I don't know much about a Common Core. Like, I don't have kids in school, and it started after I was in school, or after I left high school and stuff. Do you guys know more about it than I do?
No, I don't know anything about it.
I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, so they're in 3rd grade and 1st grade. And really the only thing I knew about Common Core when they started, because it's new, I didn't do it when I was a kid, is that the math was very different from what I used to do. And the kids would bring home their homework, and I'm thinking, this is very simple math, but I don't know how you're supposed to do this. I could do it the way I learned how to do it, but I don't know what they're talking about. So I had to learn a little bit more about that. But watching the video, I had never honestly learned this much about Common Core. I didn't really understand that that's what our nation has come to, or so many states, that it's all about test scores. And I've heard that from other people, but it was hearsay, and perhaps this documentary is hearsay as well. Maybe I would need to do a little more research myself. But my personal opinion from the evaluating the research and the Common Core video would be opposing Common Core, because the video did show several different sides and different opinions. It did show someone who was for Common Core and their side, their point of view. But beyond that, I don't know much more. So I think more research would need to be done on my part to make a better stand.
Yeah, I agree. From the video and from what I know, child development-wise, to know that the schools are just all about get children to hit this test score. If they hit the test score, great. Like that's, and we're out at that point. We just need everybody to hit this standard. Anyway, from a developmentalist perspective, very frustrating. Like I would be saying, like push my child so they hit your test score. Great. They're bored at school. They need a little bit more. Or if my child is struggling, then don't just tell them, like, you have to figure out how to read this sentence because you have to get this score on your test. Like, tell them that it's important to read and that they're eventually going to love it, and, like, give them the tools that they need to actually love learning and not just be working to get a certain score. I don't know, I think it's frustrating. I don't know. But again, I would need to do more research because I'm sure there's a lot of benefits to it, but from a developmentalist perspective, I don't.
Going back to what your question was, I thought it was interesting how about the funding was mostly from like Bill Gates, and there was just a couple people, and so I feel like it was kind of biased a little bit because they're going to go with what their beneficiaries want. I thought that was...
Yeah, that's a great point. We always have to look at, in the research paper, it does say that you have to look at who is funding the research or who is funding the project to kind of get a better understanding of where it's coming from. So really it's not coming from the states or the people, it's coming from the government and just a few people who are at the head instead of really what perhaps is good. And from the video, it showed that there wasn't very much statistics to back this up. There were no tests done. There were no studies done before they brought Common Core to everything, which to me is another reason why we should probably go against, or personally I would go against Common Core, because right now my kids are the testing group, which is a little scary, because what if they don't succeed? Yeah, if they're getting the lowest possible help just so they can pass these tests, but they're not really ready to compete and succeed, it's a little frustrating and scary in that point as well. Anything else you guys want to add? We've already talked a little bit about Janica, you talked a little bit about the developmentally appropriate practices for children. Is there any more you want to talk about? Anyone about the developmental practices of the Common Core?
I just like what you said about, I can't remember which, I think it was Bill Gates, and he just said that they don't have this, they're waiting for the scores to see if this curriculum works. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're using something they don't even know for sure.
Yeah.
Like, that is so strange to me.
Yeah, so what's going to happen in 10 years when they see, oh, whoops, this isn't working, and all these kids who have been in school, they don't know anything. They're not prepared for college. It's a little frustrating. Okay. We're going to move on to the next video that we were to watch about the cultural imperialism. It says, what have you learned from cultural imperialism about the persuasive function of research and science in creating cultural change?
I thought this video was so crazy. It was really like informative, but one of the ladies, she kind of talked about being bullied by these bigger countries, and she's like, for our culture, like we don't agree with what you guys are saying, and if we can't get aid money because we're not gonna, you know, succumb or lower our standards to your guys'. I thought that was really interesting. But they're just trying to persuade him and really bully him by saying, if you don't do this, then we're not going to give you money to help with AIDS. And I thought that was really crazy.
It made me kind of think about being like a child in the schoolyard and how, like, if you kind of stand up for what you believe and they're like, fine, well, we're just not going to be your friend. And then they, like, walk away. You know, and then the child's left there thinking, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I'm trying to be your friend. Why won't you be my friend? So, I can imagine how frustrating that would be to be saying, like, we're trying to do something good. Like, what? We're not going to lower our standards. I was like, good for you. You know, kind of like, good for you to, like, stand in your place, because I don't know, it would be hard to be like, people are dying, you know, people are suffering. Like, why don't we just help us? I don't know.
Oh, I agree. That movie was very intense for me to watch. It was very frustrating because they were telling them straightforward, this is what we need to do. This other idea that you're bringing to our country is not going to work. It's going to make it worse. And they brought numbers, they brought statistics, they showed how many people have died, how many families. They brought children who their parents have died. It made me think about how we're not supposed to drink and drive. Not that we drink anyways, but there's a law against drinking and driving because it will kill other people. It kills people. So why is it so insane? And even though, yes, it's your right to drink, you have a right, but you don't have a right to drink and drive. So why is it so crazy that that the country is asking that they should not have certain gay, lesbian rights to marriage and all that stuff, because they have proven that certain things lead to AIDS from homosexual behavior. So, and they weren't even talking about not loving these people and being cruel to these people. It was just, there are proven facts that it was harmful for their country, especially during an AIDS epidemic.
Well, and I liked how they talked about condoms and how it only works 90% of the time, and so that it kind of lowered their standards, everyone's standards, saying, oh, well, I can be promiscuous, I can have, multiple sex partners. And one of the guys said, well, it only works 90% of the time, and if you are coming in contact with people that are that have HIVs, like eventually throughout the years you're going to come in contact with it because it's not 100% proven. And so then that's kind of, made things worse. And so I thought that was interesting that they're pushing more for condoms and for, I think I talked about their curriculum about sex education and how they're pushing them to explore and to, to have multiple partners or whatever, and to just use condoms and everything will be okay, when in actuality it's not really helping that much.
Yeah, one of the scary thoughts was that while some of the HIV and AIDS problems are going down a little bit, in those countries, it's actually rising here in the United States because we have such low standards, or I should say people really demand their sexual freedom, whether it is good for themselves or for others. It doesn't matter because they are free to do what they want, which is true. They're free to do what they want, but they're upset, perhaps, when told that this is the reason why AIDS is so big. Even with the use of condoms, it's not going to stop it. Anything else you guys want to add to this portion? Okay. All right. Says, what lessons have you learned to make you more skillful in combating your chosen topic or threat? I think it just helps me to know that we do need facts and we need examples, we need studies to back up what we are trying to be an advocate for.
I think it's also to be more critical too, like have critical thinking. So when you do find a research, is it real good research, or is it okay to use, or just thinking outside of the box and more critically when we do find Sorry, I lost you guys. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I think that, well, to be more critical and to do more of my own research and not just take like what I've heard for truth, and to kind of, like we're talking about Common Core, like, yeah, I watched this great video, our professor's having us watch it, it's probably pretty factual, but for me to make my own opinion, I'm going to need to go do my own research and get my own information and like compile a bunch so that in my heart and in my mind, I know like that it's true or that it's not true, or I know specific parts of it are great, but overall it's a bad concept or vice versa. I think you can use more, have a better opinion on things when you're using these filtered in.
Yeah, I love that we do our own research and not just rely solely on the research of others or the hearsay of others. Let's see. I was going to end with a quote that was in our text by Elder Russell M. Nelson. He was just he's talking about the temptation to be popular may prioritize public opinion above the Word of God. Political campaigns and marketing strategies widely employ public opinion polls to shape their plans. Results of those polls are informative, but they could hardly be used as grounds to justify disobedience to God's commandments. This is a spiritual side of things, so he's going on to say that even if everyone's doing it, wrong is never right, evil, error, and darkness will never be truth, even if popular. So as advocates, I guess we need to take our research, and we also need to take it internally and look at what God's commandments are and what is right and what is wrong. Yeah. Do you who was doing the summary? I don't remember. You want to go ahead and
give us? I've been taking notes, so ready for this? Okay. Let's see. We talked about how you can't force anything that doesn't have facts, that truth is always truth, and that we need to be aware of people that have strong opinions that make it sound like what they're saying is facts, and really do our own research to make sure that they're credible. We need to make sure that we know all sides of an argument, and that we stay away from the I've heard stuff so that we're more on the truth side. We use kind of a lawyer situation that if we walked into a courtroom and they said, I think this is a law, I've heard this is a law, we'll go with that, but it would be very frustrating, and we wouldn't find that lawyer credible. Nobody would. If we We have a doctrine in our hearts and our minds that helps us to reach more people and makes us stronger as advocates. And we talked about how, the church needs reason and revelation, how they work together, and as advocates we also need research, so the 3 R's. We talked about Common Core. We talked about how the funding is biased and how we kind of need to do our own research to really get a strong opinion on it. But from what we understand, it's all about test scores, and how that can be very frustrating, especially as developmentalists, because it's not developmental curriculum. We talked about how, let's see, even though in that video, even though there was facts and statistics that they were being bullied by a bigger country, and how that's very real life even for us today in our day-to-day lives, and how if we have research that sometimes it's not always going to convince other people of what's right, but it helps us to know that we're standing in the right places. And we talked about how in our own becoming more skillful in combating threats, that helps us to be more critical and to do our own research and be more overall more educated. And we ended with a quote about how wrong is never right.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, you guys. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was great. Good to see you guys. Have a great day.
See you.